Hey friends, welcome. What if Naruto became Silent King of Underworld in DxD World movie? So they probably made their move, huh? A young teenage girl muttered with a smile on her face. She has long crimson hair that nearly went down to her knee with a single long strand standing upward. She has a very attractive face with bluish green eyes and thin waist and wide hips. She also has a butt that even high-class lady would be jealous of, and her breast size is out of this world. She wore a high school girl's uniform with a white top with downward stripes. She had a black shoulder cape and wore a red miniskirt. She had long creamy legs and wore black socks with brown shoes. Akeno. Yes. But you. The one who answered is a black-haired young woman who, if possible, has bigger breast than the red-haired girl. She has longer hair which she tied in a ponytail with an orange ribbon and has a pair of seductive royal purple eyes that complements her fair skin. She wore the same clothing as the other girl. How long do you think it would take before she killed him? The red-haired girl asked as if talking about killing was a normal thing for her due to her not even showing a slight twitch or anything at the mention of someone being killed. Fufufu, 2 days perhaps, or today if that filth has no patience, Akeno responded with her mouth being covered by her hand as she giggled, though the red-haired girl noticed the venom in her queen's words when she mentioned the fallen angel. Very well, let us wait and see. The moment she uttered those words, her world along with Akeno suddenly turned black. A few minutes later. Ugh, what hit me? The same red-haired girl groaned as she was woken from her unintended sleep. The moment she opened her eyes, her body immediately became alert as she saw that she was in a complete different place with the room. Instead of her occult room, it was now a giant living room with several couches circling each other with a glass table in the middle of it, with a circular mirror laying on it. There sitting on one of the couches was Akeno along with 2 other people. The first one was small petite girl with white hair with a pair of hazel eyes. She has small breast and narrow hips, but her body is far more toned and her butt was much more elegant and beautiful than the other 2. She was wearing the same clothing as them without the shoulder cape. The last person was a handsome pretty young man with blonde hair with a pair of blue eyes with a mole under it. He was fit and wear the same clothing as them, but a male version with a white button-up shirt with black blazer and black pants and shoes. Hiba, Kaneko, Akeno. Where are we? She asked in alarm, wondering how somebody managed to knock her out without her even sensing it. That was a scary thought. Whoever attacked her could have killed her had they wanted to, but instead kidnapped her along with her peerage. Akeno along with the 2 turned to her and beckoned her to sit on the couch while she raised an eyebrow at them, not even showing a hint of surprise and panic. Akeno must have seen the look as she gently put the cup of tea on the table as she pointed on the other side of the room. Turning, she saw a very disturbing man standing there wearing a complete gentlemanly suit with black tie. It would been great had it not been for the gas mask on his face and the muffled heavy breathing panting they heard from him. Ria's Gremory, the name of the red-haired girl, immediately hugged herself in disgust when she saw the man and ran towards Akeno and sit beside her for protection. Who are you? She wasn't really afraid of perverts and she also didn't hate them, but this guy gave her the creeps. What do you want with us? It doesn't matter who I am, just know that I am a pervert. You don't need to tell us that, every one of them thought at the same time already knowing that certain information. What do you want with us then, pervert? She asked. She didn't call him pervert because she wanted to degrade him, but because it's what he said he was, so they would call him that because he didn't tell them his name. The man started pacing and walking in circles around them while they follow his every move cautiously. I am here because I was asked a favor, to let you see the future. Due to the future being centered around you people, I will allow you to see it to help you prepare, and keep in mind that others will also arrive once they are introduced, but for now you 4 will be the first one here. Said the man before he started walking away, and a door suddenly appeared in front of him. You do not need to worry about time, because it is currently frozen outside of this dimension along inside. If you need anything, there is a fridge there with a supply of never-ending food. Everyone sighed in relief when they heard that certain information, while also being curious and excited at the prospect of seeing what will happen in the future. And Kaneko-san. Kaneko turned to the man wondering why he called her, not even asking why he knows her name. Our resident necromancer told me about your love for sweets and told me to make sure you will get it, so he lent me some of his powers to make a box of all kind, never-ending supply of different sweets. It's just beside the fridge. Be glad Hess really fond of you. Thank him when you're done here. Everyone was stunned at the fact that Kaneko was connected to the necromancer, someone who was greatly feared and respected in not just the underworld but in the whole world. Every being fears him and respected him, even the most powerful beings in the world bows down in respect for his power, and to think their friend Kaneko was connected to the man. Kaneko didn't know how she was connected to him, but frankly she didn't care. All she cared about was that the guy gave her a lot of sweet, and to her, he was good in her book, as she looked like Christmas came early. The man exited the door before he disappeared along with the door. The 4 of them turned to each other before Riaz nodded. How are we going to see it though? asked Kiba, making Ria's sweat drop, wondering how in the world they would see the future before they all blink when the mirror started glowing. And then a video which they assume is the vision of the future appeared, with sounds of battle going on. "What's going on?" Kiba asked with a frown. How convenient," Akeno commented with a smile as they all look at the mirror and started watching. "Ah," a young boy almost said with a delicate appearance, spoke lowly as he looked at the bleeding figure of a dying woman. The boy was only about the age of 14 and stood at a height of 411. He wasn't tall and his body was more leaned. He had a rather feminine face, matching the face of the dying woman on the ground. His skin was a fair peach color and he had bright blonde hair. His eyes were a feminine shape to them, also perfectly matching the eyes of the dying woman, yet his eyes were a sky blue color and were flooded with tears. He wore a small black jacket over his torso and it was tight enough to show his figure. He also wore orange pants. Riaz frowned, she felt as if she had seen that boy somewhere. His face was really familiar, she knew that she had seen him, but she just didn't know where and when, but he was really familiar to her. "Is that woman his mother?" Kiba asked as he noticed the similarity between the woman and the boy. He almost thought of the boy as a girl and had almost made him blush had it not been for the voice in the mirror telling them that it was a boy. Great, now he felt conflicted. "Oh my," Akeno frowned, this scene reminded her of how her mother died and how she was killed. The woman was about 55 in height, average height for a woman, and her hair was crimson red as the blood pooling out of her body. She had gray eyes, the same shape as the boy, and she had the same general figure as him. She had pale skin though, and not just because she was dying, her clothes had been ripped to shreds and she had severe wounds all over her body. Her entire left arm and leg had been pulled off of her body. All of them winced, "That looks brutal." Had they been a normal person they would have lost the content of their stomachs, but considering they all had their own fair share of deaths and gores, it was nothing but a gruesome scene to them. Spears of light itself were on the ground all around her, several of which were coated in her blood. She had a red scythe in her hand, it wasn't very big, the shaft of the scythe went from blood red to black as it got further away from the blade. The shaft was only about 4 feet long, but the blade of it was curved and nearly as long as the shaft. The Ken's eyes turned dark with a malicious glint, entered them when she saw the spear of lights. It was different from an angel and has a hint of corruption. It was a spear that she will never forget, a fallen angel spear. No wonder she immediately felt connected to the boy, both their mothers were killed by fallen angels in front of them. "Filthy creatures," she muttered in distaste while the other three looked at her in sympathy, while also taking notes that this event happened probably a long time ago, because of the scenery being of something that you would only see in the medieval era 1000 BC. "Naruto," the woman said as she let go of the scythe and reached up to touch his face, and she used her fingernails to put 3 scratches on his cheeks, then she placed 3 scratches on the other side of his face. She smiled at him, but it was a weak smile. "Don't." Then she died. Naruto's eyes widened and his hair started to become drain of color. Above him was an army of over 1,000 men and women with black wings, and his eyes were drained of even their emotion as he looked up at the army. He grabbed the scythe from the ground before he stood up and looked at them all. The army was huge, something to not be underestimated even by some of the more powerful people. Riaz tilted her head before her eyes widened. This event was in the history that was taught to them during their elementary days in the underworld. This was the event that Sona used to talk about. The event that made Sona became a book lover because it has its own books. The event that birthed the strongest being in the world. The necromancer? No. His power is awakening. Strike him down. The leader of the group shouted out and they all formed white spears of light in fire hands. Destroy him before he can speak. A powerful being with 6 black wings next to the leader, with 8 black wings, shouted out as he summoned as big a spear as he possibly could. He flung it down and the rain of spears seemed to go in slow motion for Naruto. He opened his mouth. Die. The entire army fell out of the sky, dead long before their bodies hit the ground. The strongest of them, even those who could have been filled with potential, perished in seconds as his words filled the area, their amazing hearing working against them as reality itself was warped. "What?" Kiba asked in disbelief, wondering how in the world it happened. Akeno and Kaneko also frowned, wondering how a simple word as die had killed all those fallen angels without him even using a magic spell or the scythe in his hand. Then understanding dawned on their faces. The boy is the necromancer. The lord of the underworld and the only being whose standing far surpassed that of a demon king. After all, he was the one who appointed the title of Satans to the current 4 Satans and the one who made the rules in the underworld, their supreme ruler, but it was rare for a normal devil to see him or his counterpart the lady necromancer. None of them had seen their faces nor known their name yet, only the higher-ups and the member of 72 Pillars knew, but they all knew that they can do and what kind of powers they have. They are legends to all, but to see him kill all those fallen angels with just a single word as die was fascinating as it was horrifying. No wonder he was dubbed as the strongest being in existence. Naruto walked over to the body of his mother and his brain was being assaulted by the pain of thousands of deaths at the same time. He kneeled down next to her. Live. I didn't mean to be rude to Lord Necromancer, but is Lord Naruto you know who? I mean the power to bring people back from the dead. Rias nodded her head knowing who Kiba was talking about, since as far as she knows only God could do such feats. No, Kiba-kun, Lord Necromancer isn't a you-know-who, his power is far more greater, be careful though if you ever ask that question to the higher-ups, they might take that as an offense and accuse you as a heretic before torching you, answered Rias while Kiba shuddered, that's kind of scary, even a small insult is enough to cost him his life if the one they are insulting is their Lord Necromancer. Though she wonders what is their Lord Necromancer doing in the human world and not in the underworld. So this is what he looks like and his name is Naruto, Rias thought with a smile, she would have never thought that the Lord Necromancer is an adorable boy. Naruto opened his eyes and he looked up at the sky, he could remember that day clearly, it had been a long time since then, since that day, he hadn't aged even a little bit, instead, the only thing about him that had changed were his clothes, even then he didn't change them too much and instead added to them, Naruto sat up. Since he was sitting in front of a mini-mart he was in a rarely visited place. He had only added armor to his clothes. He now wore old-fashioned plate of silver armor with several eye slots going up to down on it, with several Magatama designs that went over his forehead, like a crown that he wore cloth to his head, over his chest and the front of his neck, he had a breastplate that covered only the smallest amount of his torso, it had a moon symbol on it, crescent moon, with a swirled circle inside of the moon. It had straps going around his back and cut off before it could cover his stomach or ribs, likewise, he now had on hip protectors in the same dark grey metal color, he had armored leggings going from knees to feet, same metal design, finally, he wore plated armor forearm guards. So that is Lord Necromancer, Kaneko commented as she took in the features of the boy and noted that she was taller than him if not as tall. Ara, who would have thought that the most powerful being in Underworld is this adorable boy, Akeno giggled in her hand, while Rias shook her head with a sigh of annoyance. Hungry, Naruto thought as he looked up at the sky, unsure of what he should do about to abate his hunger. Rias frowned, she was sure that had he voiced that out in the underworld, then all the devils or other beings in there would go in a mass panic just to produce the finest of meals for him. She really wonders what Lord Necromancer is doing in the human world without even a single guard, she would need to talk to her dear brother later. He got up and he started to walk, just walk. He didn't know where was going to go, he just wanted to walk, if he walked, he would find somebody that would feed him something, he had no money, and he didn't want to steal food, he wasn't above it, but that would be something he would do as a last resort. Naruto raised an eyebrow and stopped walking when he felt a familiar sensation, somebody who had a familiar power. It was a power that he hadn't sensed for a good while, not for a couple of decades to be more exact. Naruto looked, and he could see there was a boy and girl walking together, as if on a date. His head tilted. Akeno's eyes immediately darkened with a sadistic air surrounded her. Fufufu, she started giggling sadistically while Rias inched away from her. Akeno, I know that you hate fallen angels, but we aren't in the presence of one, so calm down, you're scaring us, Rias placated the giggling Akeno who was looking at the image sadistically. True to her words, Kaneko was ducking her head away from her, while Kiba was shaking slightly due to him being reminded of the time when he first met his master and became the target of Akeno's sadistic tendencies. Till now he's still cold, believe a candle and a dildo could go in there, as he really thought that place was only for exit and a no-entry place. The boy was the source of the feeling, he had black hair and his eyes were a hazel color, he lacked any real muscle tone and stood at about 57 maybe 58 in height, he wasn't handsome and he didn't have the looks of somebody that was a well-grounded person, he kept stealing looks at the girl's bosom. Perv, Kaneko commented as she pointed at the boy's face while looking at Rias, as if pointing out that the boy is a pervert, even though all of them could see it. The look in her eyes says hey it's a pervert, disgusting, right. And he was wearing a black shirt with a white button up over it, the source of the feeling was coming from his left arm, and now that he was closer, he could sense the exact source of the power. Reg. Naruto thought to himself as he looked at the boy and he looked at the girl, I see, so she is going to kill him, Naruto thought as he watched the girl lead the boy towards an isolated park. Kiba whistled while Rias raised an eyebrow with a hint of smile on her face, so she was right, the boy was special, but never she expected him to be the wielder of the Welsh dragon. Surprising, Kaneko muttered. Fufufu, so even insects is allowed to have a sacred gear of that level, Akeno giggled, referring to Issei as an insect. Kaneko nodded her head in agreement and for some reason Kiba suddenly felt bad for Issei. The girl was a little shorter than the boy, long, black hair that was rather nice to look at, she was attractive, out of the boy's league, she had violet eyes, and she had a slim body, her breasts were large, seductive and perky, she had wide hips meant for childbirthing, and she wore a white blouse with a short black skirt, she had long legs that she liked to show off. Naruto knew her aura though, reading it he felt that she was not human. Phew, how disgusting, pretending like a normal human girl and luring men, Akeno commented disdainfully that it took every willpower Rias has to retort. She would have say hey, you are just the same, pretending to be a human and luring human men and women to torture. He watched with curious eyes. Issei-kun, could you die for me? The girl said, and she summoned a spear of light in her hand and grew two large black wings. Issei didn't even know what hit him until he was impaled by a spear of light through a good number of vital organs in the gut. Naruto nodded for a moment because apparently the answer to that question. Yes, he could die for her, sadly, he wasn't given the option of saying no. She didn't need to ask if she wouldn't even wait for him to answer, Yudo commented with a frown, feeling bad for the boy, while Kaneko pumped her fist. He turned to Kaneko in disbelief, only to see her staring at the mirror stoically, as if the fist pumping didn't happen. What? Issei asked as he touched the wound in his stomach and he lifted his hand up to his face, he wasn't in any pain, he had gone into shock the second it happened, he was going to quickly and pathetically die on the ground. Well, sorry about this, but you are a threat, if you are going to blame anyone, blame God for giving you a sacred gear, the woman said as she pulled her wings back into her body, she froze when she felt somebody enter the area, and her frozen state turned into fear when she saw Naruto walk onto the scene, she started to back away, obviously knowing when somebody stronger than she was had appeared. Oh, at least she has some common sense to realize that Lord Necromancer is far more stronger than her, Rias commented with a smirk, it was no secret that Rias looked up to the necromancers, like how the angel sees God, so to her, the necromancers are equivalent if not above than gods. Phew, there she goes again, Akeno giggled with a pleasant smile on her face as she stared at Rias. What? Rias asked, honestly creeped out at the way Akeno was staring at her. Listen, I am sorry if you were friends with this guy, I didn't know I had annoyed you Lord Necromancer. The girl apologized as she raised her hands up in surrender. Naruto scribbled words down on his notepad. Leave fallen. Yes sir. She said quickly as his wings came out and she started to fly away as fast as she could. Naruto looked at Issei on the ground and he nodded at how she rightfully ran away when she realized that she was outmatched. Rias nodded, good, at least she wasn't a complete bird brain because she truly believes that fallen angels are bird brains. For some reason Akeno wanted to smack Rias for something. Naruto leaned down to Issei's level and he looked up at Naruto with weak blurry eyes. Beautiful blue eyes, Issei spoke as he looked up and saw without a doubt the most pure and innocent eyes he had ever seen, they were large and filled with such vibrant color, that color being blue, he reached up and his fingers lightly touched Naruto's cheek, Naruto looked at Issei without any emotion in his eyes. Yet, he grabbed Issei's hand and held onto it. Rias looked on jealously. I am so jealous Rias muttered under her breath while Akeno patted her on the shoulder, she knew just how much Rias idolized Lord and Lady Necromancers, as she truly believed that their lives belongs to him. At least, if the boy was going to die, then Naruto wouldn't allow him to die alone, he would hold his hand while he died, and listen to any final words that he might have, of course, he also was happy that he was complimented so genuinely, this dying person honestly believed he had nice eyes, of course he might not have said that if he could tell gender at the moment. Well, Naruto did have his mother's beautiful face. The boy is going to die alone, betrayed by his love. Naruto thought to himself, though he had a hard time understanding what had happened. Damn, I would prefer if I died in her arms, no, her boobs, Issei said as he started to slip away. Naruto tilted his head for a moment, it would seem that the boy had somebody in his final thoughts. Kaneko scowled. Perverted insect. Dark energy. Naruto looked a little to his right and he could see a devil summoning circle appearing on the ground, the boy was unknowingly summoning a devil, which would no doubt end with his soul being sent to hell for this one, the boy bore no cross and he held no bonds to any religion that would save his soul from eternally being damned, the underworld and hell were different things. Naruto could see the person start to form from the feet up. Naruto looked at Issei before he leaned down and opened his mouth. Don't die. But that, his soul was safe. Hello, and who might you be? A girl asked, a devil girl, as she appeared out of the portal vanished, and Naruto tilted his head, well, this girl was beautiful as well, that was a pleasant surprise. Tall girl for starters, she stood at about 58 and she had long crimson hair, it nearly went down to her knee, she also had bright blue eyes, with a similar shape to his own, she had a long hair that stood up on the top, and she had fair skin, the girl was without a doubt attractive, with a thinner waist and wider hips than the fallen one, she had a much higher class butt. And her breast size was out of this world large. She wore a high school girl's uniform with a white top with downward stripes, she had a black shoulder cape and wore a red miniskirt, she had long creamy legs and wore black socks with brown shoes. Ria's breath immediately hitched. "Oh my, looks like your dream came true much earlier," Akeno commented, knowing that it was Ria's dream to meet Lord Necromancer and to see him face to face. Lucky for Issei that he was unconscious, otherwise the boy might have lost his mind instead of just his soul to this girl. I guess Dragon still attracts power to him and his hosts, Naruto thought with bored eyes as he looked at the boy. Naruto was sitting down and the still bleeding Issei had his head placed on his lap. "Well, you look familiar for some reason, anyway, this boy here summoned me in his dying moments, I would appreciate it if you allowed me to fulfill his wish," the devil girl said as she held a hand out for Naruto to take so that he could stand up. Naruto looked away from her without saying anything. Ugh, Riaz held her head in shame and embarrassment. But you finally met the man of your dreams and yet you didn't recognize him?" Akeno asked with a smirk on her face while Kiba and Kaneko backed away from the two. In case Akeno's teasing get a bit too much and Riaz got annoyed, they didn't want to be near the two of they started a spat. Riaz threw her hands in the air with red face. "It's not my fault. I never knew Lord Necromancer's name or even his appearance until now, so sorry if I didn't recognize him," she exclaimed with an embarrassed look, though she was glad that she didn't about him yet since she didn't want her peerage to see her gushing in front of Lord Necromancer. She didn't want to embarrass herself in front of him by acting like a fangirl. Creeping him out is the last thing she would ever wanted. Naruto had brought Issei back to life, that made Issei his servant. "I do not wish to give him up." "Well, please reconsider it, I assure you, he will be safe with me, I will even fix him up. My name is Riaz Gremory, what is your name?" Riaz introduced herself as kindly as she could. She kind of needed to get Issei away from Naruto, she did need to fulfill his wish and she did need to use him for her own reasons as well. The boy was worth enough that he had been able to summon her like this. "You plan on making him into a devil? So, you are knowledgeable on devil ways then, you must be from the underworld as well." "Yes, I do plan on adding him to my peerage, is this boy your Ani-chan?" Riaz asked as she grabbed Issei's hand and tried to remove the boy from Naruto. Naruto stayed firm though and kept a grip on Issei. "Not one word," she greeted out when she saw the look on Akeno's face. "But you got to agree that Lord Necromancer looks like Hess the same age as Kaneko-chan here or younger, so it's normal for you to mistake him for being Issei-san's younger brother," Kiba placated with Kaneko nodding with her. Right, Kaneko seconded. "Thank you Udo, Kaneko," Riaz thanked the both of them before she glared at Akeno. "My servant. Oh, I see, well, this boy is worth a lot to me, is there anything I can offer for him?" Riaz asked with a nice tone to her voice. She wanted this boy for her peerage, needed him for her peerage at this moment. She couldn't just allow such potential to go wasted, not when it was so close to her. 999,999,999,999. Everyone grimaced. "That's a bit too much," said Kaneko as she adopted a thinking look, probably thinking of how much sweets she would be able to buy with amount of money. Come to think of it, doesn't she have an infinite amount of sweets given to her by Lord Necromancer, the kind and thoughtful Necromancer, since he gave her so much sweets, her opinion of him raised up to the max. Ria's sweat dropped when Naruto wrote down a price. There was no way that she could get that money, even though that her family had the money, it would make them go bankrupt very quickly. She couldn't wipe out her family's savings for this reason either, it would only hurt her in the long run. "Anything else?" Riaz asked Naruto, and Naruto pointed to an earlier note. "My servant. Is there any way you can share him?" Riaz asked, and Naruto looked at Issei for a second. The boy had drag in him, that alone made him worth a lot, of course, the rest of him was worth nothing. It was like putting gold sprinkles on shit, the shit was worthless, but the gold was actually worth something. Issei was the shit and drag was the golden sprinkles. "I will share, but with a condition." "Oh thank you for that," Riaz started to say, before she paused. As a devil, she wasn't allowed to thank God, get praised by God, or get prayed for. It would cause her pain to do any of that. She could read the Bible, touch crosses, or get wet with holy water. All of that stuff was strictly forbidden to her. "So, what is this condition?" Riaz asked, and Naruto looked at her for a second. She really didn't recognize him, that, or she simply was never shown a picture of what he looked like. Naruto pointed at her boobs. "For as long as we share Issei, those also belong to me, I also want a place to live." Kaneko's face twitched, she liked the guy for giving her a gift and fulfilling her dream of infinite sweets, but now that she heard that she didn't know what to feel. Oh well, everyone has their own quirks and she won't hate him for his. Riaz, instead of looking offended at the demand, she looked more like honored as her face was shining with her eyes twinkling, along with her lips stretched in a wild smile. Of course, it will be my greatest honor to live with you, Lord Necromancer, Riaz gushed out, while the other three decided to ignore their love-struck president. In her eyes, there is nothing that Lord Necromancer can do wrong, as he is always right, so if he asked for her breast, then it is the right thing, and that it belongs to him, so she would gladly give it to him. So, my boobs for Issei. That seems fair, I guess. Yeah, I guess I can do that. I will agree to it, for as long as Issei is a part of my peerage, you can do with my breasts what you want. Ria spoke with a nod of understanding. She didn't know why he wanted her breasts. He seemed to be on the young side. Maybe he was just at that age where he was curious about breasts. Or maybe he had some other reason for it. There were some magical creatures who gained power from breasts, certain breeds of insects and demons that used the power gained from sucking on breasts to grow stronger and maintain their life force. I am serious. Oh, I don't doubt that, I am also serious. This boy has a powerful sacred gear. If my breasts will allow me to bring him to my side, then the price is worth the product I am paying for. You will share Issei, and I will share my breasts. Why do you want them though? Riaz asked with a raised eyebrow, just out of curiosity, nothing really more than that. She won't change her answer based on his answer. I want them. Ah, you are an adorable little guy, aren't you? I guess I can find a place for you to live, Ria said with small smile on her face. Issei is still my servant, I am just sharing him. I didn't forget, so, how is he alive anyway? Riaz asked as she looked at the gaping hole in his stomach. He should by all means be dead by this point, but he wasn't. I turned him into a zombie. Ria's smile widened. First she got to meet Lord Necromancer, found out what he looked like, found out his name and heard his beautiful voice, and now he will be living with her, and most of all, she got a Longinus user and a zombie, a servant of Lord Necromancer. Such bliss, nothing could ruin this for her, not even Riser. Ah, Necromancer Sama. There, Akeno-san, is but you alright? Kiba asked with furrowed brows while Akeno merely giggled in her hand. Ara fufu. Kiba's sweat dropped before he looked at Kaneko, who merely shrugged her shoulders. Riaz blinked before she realized that she was about to have the first zombie devil in her peerage. Her eyes widened for a moment before she had a small smile come over her face. Yes, this was more than worth the price she was paying. The mirror started shimmering before it blacked out. Well, I guess that was episode 1. Kiba asked since it was a video, so he called it episode instead of chapter. Riaz didn't respond as she was still in La La Land with a blissful smile. Kiba's sweat dropped. Okay. This will take a while. But you, Kiba called out before he coughed when Riaz ignored him as she was still gushing at the thought of Naruto. But you, Kiba called out once again, albeit a bit more strongly, seeing that he was ignored again. A small tick mark appeared on his cheek. Kiba is a patient man, but this was the very first time he had been ignored. And the way Akeno and Kaneko was looking at him irritated him. He didn't know why, but it really is irritating him. Ah. But you, Razor is here. Kiba exclaimed in surprise, while Riaz jumped to her feet and started shooting ball of destruction at every corner of the room. Where? Riaz whipped her head from left to right, looking for the only person in the world whom she wanted to murder the most. Ah, sorry, it looks like I was wrong. Riaz scowled at Kiba, who was smiling at him. Somehow the smile in his face irritated her, as if he had accomplished something truly wondrous. She was about to reprimand him when the mirror started shimmering again. Devil boobs, half-breed boobs, Nico boobs, Naruto thought to herself as he was walked into a room with several other devils. Riaz immediately melted at hearing Naruto's beautiful voice despite it being a thought. They are the only people in existence other than Lady Necromancer to hear Lord Necromancer's voice that much. Kaneko's lips thinned when she heard of Naruto's thoughts. The second he entered the room, Riaz had made a point of taking Issei to his house and then taking Naruto to the occult research club room. It was part of a school called Kuo Academy. It was located in the old, unused for the most part, school building that no longer could be used by normal students. Now, it was the hosting room to the peerage of Riaz Gremory. I actually am surprised, Akeno commented with her hand on her lips, while Kaneko and Kiba turned to her while ignoring the gushing Riaz, who looked as if she would swallow the mirror. Why is that, Akeno-senpai? Kaneko asked with a tilt of her head. Well, think about it, but you did not know that Naruto-sama is Lord Necromancer, so for her to not only bring him to the occult club room, and the fact that she didn't erase his memories, it was as if their meeting was truly meant to happen, Akeno explained, while Kiba made a face of realization. That actually makes sense since it is unusual for a devil to let a witness keep their memories unless they are the one who requested from the devils. The room was spacious, with 2 couches seated on opposite ends of a coffee table. There was a desk with a large important-looking chair, and in the room was a shower with a curtain that went in front of it. So this was where Riaz was taking him to live. And apparently Butchu is letting him live here. That really is a surprise, though I really wanted to know what her reaction will be if she ever found out about Naruto-sama being her beloved Lord Necromancer. Akeno wondered as her mind immediately started picturing different scenarios to how Rias would react. I am sure I would react like an elegant devil who respects her lord, Rias responded after snapping back into reality. Kiba made a face before he leaned to Kaneko. I'm sure she would act like the way she did here. I really wish I am not there when she found out about Naruto-sama being the Lord Necromancer. That would be embarrassing, Kiba whispered while Kaneko nodded in agreement. Did you say something, Kiba-kun? Rias asked a bit too sweetly while Kiba merely just smiled at Rias. Oh, I was just telling Kaneko-chan that you no longer need to worry about Riser, he responded, confusing Akeno and Rias. Hey Kiba-kun, Akeno called out in shock while adding a bit of stutter in her voice to add some effects. Don't tell me you seduced Riser-san so that Butchu would not longer need to marry him. She asked with a slight stutter while she was laughing inside her mind. Hey Kiba-kun, to do that for me, to sacrifice your own self for your Butchu, you really are selfless, Rias added with fake tears while Kiba turned red with Kaneko looking away. I never thought you had it in you, senpai, Kaneko seconded with a hidden smile. Had I known I would have taught you some techniques to make it slid in easier, fufufu, Akeno added with a smile while Rias snorted while biting her lips to stop herself from laughing. I am not gay. Kiba's scream of outrage as he lost his composure echoed inside the room while Rias and Akeno burst into laughter. But he was right, Rias no longer needed to worry about Riser as she already belongs to Naruto-sama, and if Riser even dare try to attack Naruto-sama due to his arrogance and ignorance, then he would be punished by her brother. She just hoped that her brother execute that bird brain. Kaneko, Akeno, where is Yudo? Rias asked the two girls, who looked towards Az and then noticed Naruto. Akeno, a girl standing several inches shorter than Rias did, she had longer hair though, and it was black, it was kept up in a ponytail, held by an orange ribbon, she had fairer skin, and her eyes were a sedative royal purple color, she had even larger breasts than even Rias had, if that was even possible considering how well formed they were. A smug smile that Akeno sent Rias was annoying her so much that she wanted to slap the hell out of her friend. She wore the same uniform as Rias did, as did the other girl actually, she gave off the feeling of a half-breed to Naruto, and he didn't mean devil, he meant that even before she became a devil, she seemed like a half-breed. A smug smile on Akeno's face was wiped out as she frowns while Rias grimaced. The other girl, Kaneko, was a girl that stood about 46 in height, shorter than even him, and he stopped aging as a child. She had white hair, not unlike his silver hair, she had cat-like yellow eyes, and she had soft white skin. She was petite, not having much in the ways of hips or breasts. Kaneko looked down at her breast with a frown, not she felt self-conscious, she glared at Akeno's and Ria's breast for a second before she started looking at her own breast again. She had a narrow waist, small but perky breasts, and she did have a more pleasant rump than the others to look at. She wore her uniform without the shoulder cape. Well, at least she had that. Akeno had been making some tea, and Kaneko was eating a snack. Udo was summoned Butchu, Akeno told her, while Kaneko looked at Naruto with her eyes slightly narrowed. Good, well, Akeno, Kaneko, this is Naruto, he is going to be living here for as long as he likes, Ria said as she gestured to Naruto, who ignored her introduction and looked at the snacks on the table. Naruto stared at them, and his stomach growled again. He went over and sat on the couch before he grabbed a bag of chips and opened them up. Kaneko froze the second he sat next to her. Enemy, Kaneko whispered. Kaneko-chan, that is Lord Necromancer, if he wanted it he can have it, Rias explained with narrowed eyes, she would not let her cute little servants get away with insulting their lord. Enemy, Kaneko, stand firm. He gave you an infinite supply of sweets, Rias retorted with a vein on her forehead. Kaneko froze for a second before she nodded. Friend. Dodge a bullet there, Kaneko-chan, but damn, Naruto-sama knew how to bribe someone, that was Kiba's thought. He didn't speak out loud in fear of being targeted by Akeno and Rias once again. They will pay, hell make sure of that. He doesn't seem very talkative, Akeno noted with a raised eyebrow. It was like he was familiar to her for some reason, like she was supposed to know who he was, but at the same time she had never seen him in person before. I haven't heard him talk either, I think he might be mute, he communicates via writing things down, Ria spoke with a shake of her head. That was kind of annoying, since while she could speak and understand people in any language her skill didn't pass over into writing, sometimes she didn't know what he was saying, or she didn't know the exact phrasing he was using. Poor child, Akeno commented with a sad sigh, not being able to talk must have been frustrating. Kaneko finally relaxed a little when the dangerous feeling went away. Kaneko shook her head. Idiots, to think that they didn't sense the overwhelming and never-ending power that was rolling off Naruto in waves, maybe because she was attuned to nature which makes her more aware, but to think that such magical power couldn't be sensed by them just shows how different of a level he had compared to them. Well, thanks to him we all have a new little brother. I was able to make a deal for shared servitude. One of his servants will be shared with me, Ria said with a slight smile. Akeno raised her eyebrow at that one. A deal? Akeno whispered to her with a raised eyebrow, since she wasn't sure if she liked the sound of that. My boobs are his for however long Issei is my servant, which ought to anger Riser even more, Ria spoke with a wider smirk on her face. Boobs belonging to you are my boobs. But you messed up, Kaneko spoke when Naruto gave her a note. She had read it over, and she had seen something that Ria's hadn't accounted for. That is always why you need to read the fine print but you, Kia shook his head, jumping at the chance to get back at Ria's for her earlier teasing of him and questioning his masculinity. You saying something you cun? Ria's asked with a small frown on her face, while Kaneko outright scowled at her. Tiba immediately prostrate himself. I'm sorry, please call me by my name. Do you know this boy Kaneko? Ria's asked with a surprised look, and Kaneko shook her head. She had no clue who he was, even though she was sure she had heard about him somewhere. No, you gave him boobs that belong to you, not your boobs, Kaneko spoke when she figured out what Ria's really gave Naruto. Isn't it the same thing? Akeno couldn't help herself but question, boobs belonging to Ria's and Ria's boobs were asking for the same thing. She had to think that maybe Kaneko was taking the note the wrong way. Can you be a little more exact? Ria's asked her servant family with a disbelieving tone. She was a devil. Nobody should be able to trick her into agreeing to something she didn't know about. Tricking people was supposed to be what she did, not the other way around. If this child was able to do that, then she would be shamed as a devil for being outsmarted by a little boy. Well, Naruto-sama is the wisest being out there as he is one of the oldest, Ria's weakly defended herself. Could they not see the honor of being able to serve Naruto-sama? The honor of being able to serve the feared and loved Lord Necromancer. All boobs that you own, he owns, Kaneko spoke with a shiver, because it would seem Ria's didn't realize what she had done. You tricked me, Ria said to Naruto, who looked at her with a tilted head. He wasn't sure what she was talking about. He didn't trick he gave her what she wanted, and she was going to give him what he wanted as well. I am still in the dark, Akeno had to mention to everyone, since she didn't really get the wording. I didn't trick you, I wanted your boobs, I own all boobs belonging to you. Akeno, all boobs that I own, he owns, Akeno, you and Kaneko are still technically my property. I own you, meaning I own your boobs. Your boobs belonging to me, meaning that your boobs now belong to him, Ria's explained to Akeno as she pointed to Naruto, who waved her in a dull way. Ria's wasn't wrong in the fact that Naruto now owned all of their boobs. Any girl that Ria's added to her servant group in the future would have her boobs owned by Naruto to do with what he pleased. Akeno looked at Naruto for a moment before she smiled and looked at Ria's. Kaneko frowned at Akeno. Of course, you would be fine with that, she commented snidely while Akeno smiled at her sadistically. You saying something Pocky? Akeno responded while Kaneko merely looked away with her face pale. She didn't want to experience that again, she got shivers just from remembering it. Ifufu, now that is priceless, is that what you meant Naruto-kun? Akeno asked as she got in front of Naruto and leaned down to his level. She had to admit, Ria's being tricked in such a way was hilarious to her. They weren't part of the deal Naruto, Ria said with a frown. She didn't agree with that, she just thought she was offering her own body up as payment. She was fine with that, but she didn't believe that she was giving up her peerage's breasts as well. I don't care. I don't really mind all that much Ria's, he is just a child after all, and an adorable one at that, Akeno said as she reached out to touch Naruto, before she stopped when Naruto leaned forward and reached for more snacks. Her touch completely missed, and she felt a little embarrassed at not paying attention. Well, it's true if you do not look at Naruto-sama as the all-powerful being, you will see just how adorable he looks, though he looked like a girl, but that's what made it perfect fufu. And it's true, Akeno just couldn't help but think that it would not be Naruto if he didn't have that feminine look. Kaneko? Ria's asked, hoping that the smallest member of her peerage would be able to help her out here. You agreed to it? Kaneko asked her, and Naruto nodded for Ria's, she agreed to his deal. If she refuses, I get full ownership of Issei again. Ria sucked on her teeth when she read that. Now she was making a deal that would actually cost her something. Now she was basically sharing all of her servants, the female ones at least, with Naruto. She had unknowingly given him all of the breasts of her peerage, meaning that since she ruled over them, they didn't have the option of refusing it. Now she couldn't go back on the deal without breaking it and giving Naruto full ownership of Issei, and that would mean she would be out 8 pawns, the price it took to add Issei to her peerage. This is just like when you told me to bribe those human syndicate, if I remember they called themselves the Gsta, Kiba commented with a chuckle. This was just like when he was told to bribe those guys, and instead of accepting it, they started threatening him and telling him to do this and that, and give them this and that. In the end Kiba was forced to kick their sorry for the term, Kiba was forced to kick their assess and threatened them until they accepted it. She just realized that she either did good by the deal or she lost a lot more than she believed. Yes, I agreed, you are a sneaky little devil, Ria spoke with only mild annoyance. As annoyed as she was also just as impressed with the child that had managed to pack a devil's pact with her. She had agreed to something, but ended up paying much more for it than she believed at first. It was like she was dealing with somebody who had vast experience with devils. I am not a devil. That's right, but you, please don't confuse Naruto-sama to be a lowly devil like us Yufufu, Akeno commented snidely, while Rias frowned at her. She didn't know alright, and she didn't have to add the lowly devil part. I hate you so much right now Akeno, Rias greeted out while Akeno just giggled sadistically at her. I didn't, okay, whatever, yes Kaneko, sadly your breasts now also belong to him, I am sorry, I didn't know I was offering your body as trade material. Rias felt truly sorry about what she did to Kaneko and Akeno, she had truly believed she was the only person paying a price, not that she was going to be offering up her own peerage members as payment. At least she was safe. Kaneko knew that Naruto would only love big breast that was depressing, but it was for the best, at least she would be safe, that's some consolation at least. Though she really hoped that she won't need to sell her body, even if it's with Naruto-sama it would still kind of sucks, but she didn't need to worry since he won't desire her breast. Who would care about someone with small breast like her? For some reason that kind of stung for Kaneko. I am annoyed, but you only traded my breasts, nothing else, correct? Kaneko asked Naruto at the end. She was annoyed with Rias, but she understood it had been an honest mistake, and Rias felt bad for it, now she just wanted to confirm how much of her Naruto owned. Correct, I only have need of your breasts. Have need? You mean you actually need our breasts for something? Akeno asked with a tone that suggested she was nearly about to laugh, that sounded just amazing to her with how ridiculous it was. Well, there are magical beings who use breasts, kitsune use breasts to possess women and suck out their energy, there are plenty of beings who use breasts, Rias lectured Akeno, seeing as it wasn't that unheard of for a magical being needing breasts. True, there are beings out there that gets their power from sucking a woman's breast, just like those sure people, Rias nodded her head in agreement to her future self. But he isn't, Kaneko felt the need to remind Rias that Naruto isn't like that. Also true. Rias nodded her head. He isn't a yakai, Kaneko spoke to them, and now Rias and Akeno both looked at Naruto. If he wasn't a yakai, why did he need breasts? Naruto, what purpose does owning out breasts serve you? Rias asked this time, because him not being a yakai pretty much ruined him having a life-related need for their boobs. I want them. Akeno let out a small laugh while the others looked at her in confusion. What? I am starting to understand how Naruto-sama's mind works now, Akeno responded as she stopped laughing while Rias frowned, she didn't like the sound of that, if there is someone who should understand Naruto-sama it would be her. She needed to work harder. And do pray tell how his mind works? Rias asked with an annoyed tone. Oh ho, jealous are you, anyway, Naruto-sama is the kind of person who will do whatever he wanted to do and take whatever he wanted, there is no second thoughts nor any hesitation, if he wanted you then will take you one way or another, that's just how his mind works, Akeno responded, she liked that kind of attitude. To get whatever you wanted without hesitation, no matter how outrageous it might be, or how forward and shameless you might look. If you want it then go get it. Naruto didn't feel like explaining the reason he wanted or needed them, he just did, he wanted their breasts because he wanted them, he did it on a whim, he needed no other explanation than that, he was still a boy and he still liked breasts, he needed them for a slightly different reason, as his servant and based on his dying words, Naruto had attained information that Issei was a huge pervert. Instead of wishing for family or friends upon death, he wanted boobs, he was a pervert and if he joined a devil peerage he would be surrounded by breasts. See? No one asked you. Most devils choice to add women to their peerage for some reason, rarely did a devil have a mostly or all male peerage, even female devils went for mostly females. That's true, Rias nodded her head, the ratio of the women and men in the underworld are 10 to 1, which is why male devils usually forms a harem to make it even. Naruto liked boobs, but he also wanted to make sure that Issei had a goal to strive for, growing powerful and getting his own peerage, and filling it with his own girls. If Issei had access to these boobs, he might not be as driven to get powerful, the stronger Issei got, the more valuable he was to Naruto as well. Ah, so that's why, Issei-sen is a pervert we all know that, since he will be a member of Buchi's peerage which is mostly filled with women, Issei-kun being a pervert would always be distracted, which is why Naruto-sama decided to take you as his own, so that Issei-kun would have a goal, something to reach for, Kiba deduced, while Rias held a look of realization. What do you know, that really did make sense. He did want to play with boobs, but he also wanted them because he didn't want Issei to have them. That doesn't explain much, Rias noted as she read his note, it was hard for her to reason out why he wanted them. It doesn't matter, I can do what I want with them. He really is a stubborn child, I guess he just likes boobs, don't worry, One-chan will let you play with her boobies, Akeno teased Naruto, hoping to get a blush from him. He didn't blush or even react to her teasing, he didn't care about if she would let him do it, she had no choice now, he owned her boobs, if he said to whip them out, she would whip them out. Oh, Akeno pressed her reddened cheeks on her palm, she liked that kind of attitude, her being a major sadist to be dominated like that by someone much more powerful than her aroused her greatly, and the fact that he seems to not care about her being a half-breed. Well, if you two are okay with it, I guess it doesn't matter too much, Ria spoke with a sigh, if they were taking it so well, she didn't believe it was something worth worrying over. I am not okay with it, but I accept it as unavoidable now, Kaneko corrected her, she didn't like it, but she would accept it as fact, if Ria's traded her to somebody, she didn't have a choice, also, this was to help out Ria's anyway, if she didn't give her boobs, then Ria's was going back on the contract and lost a lot more than Kaneko did by giving them. She loved Ria's, so she would do this. Thank you, Kaneko, Ria's flashed Kaneko a small smile of gratitude while Kaneko nodded her head. Don't get used to this though, she reminded indicating that this is the only time she would let Ria's do as she pleased with her. Of course, Ria's nodded her head. A teleporting circle appeared in the wide open space in the room, and soon a young man of about 16 or 17 years old appeared out of it. Naruto raised an eyebrow when he saw the boy, who had bright blonde hair and blue eyes. The boy was handsome, without a doubt extremely pretty handsome, had a mole under she eye, and was fit. He was about as tall as Ria's was, and had the body of a swordsman. He gave off an aura deep in his chest that let Naruto know of his sacred gear, one that Naruto had personally seen the creation of for that matter. The boy wore a white shirt, with a black jacket over it and black pants, all styled like a high school uniform. This must be Yudo. Hey but you, I got the client finished with, well, hello there, Yudo started, before he looked at Naruto, deep into his eyes, and seemed to just stare at them. His face turned red for a moment before he saw Naruto write something. Oho Akeno and the other two turned to look at Kiba in amusement while he held his reddened face in his hand. Oh great. This isn't really helping my case. True, it really wasn't helping his case, they are starting to question his masculinity now, but with that reaction, they would really start to doubt him. Anything to tell the class Kiba kun fufu. Fuck you sadist, thought Kiba as he refused to look up. I am a boy. Well I am conflicted then, Yudo Kiba, a pleasure to meet you, here you go but you, I finished with the client, Yudo said as he gave Ria's a sheet that had writing on it, with things being circled. Very good, and you were given high marks, I am proud of you Yudo, this is Naruto, he doesn't talk, he will be staying with us until further notice, Ria spoke, and Yudo extended his hand towards Naruto. Naruto didn't shake his hand. You are supposed to shake, Yudo told Naruto, who looked at his hand. Naruto then turned away and ignored him. Yudo looked amused by it, but didn't seem all that offended. Maybe he sensed you lusting after him. I am straight, Kiba greeted out as he glared at Akeno who ignored it with a smile. Well Yudo, tomorrow I want you to go to Issei Hiatus class during lunch and go get him. Naruto, is there any side effects of Issei becoming a zombie? Ria's asked Naruto, and Naruto ignored her completely. Naruto felt the need to tell her that Issei would turn into a mummified husk in sunlight, and that as a devil, that weakness was even stronger than before. He didn't though. She sweat dropped. Well, it would seem that she would have to find out on her own. Well, looks like we had another sadist in our hands, Kiba commented trying to direct the attention away from him, but to his horror they didn't. Anyway Kiba-kun, now I understand why you always ignores those girls, since you prefer the other team. Akeno stood up and sat beside Yudo and started patting his shoulder. It is alright, I make a girl out of you. I miscalculated. Thought Kiba as Akeno and Ria started telling on what they would do to him and what dresses he would be wearing from now on. Thanks for watching.